Good morning, David.
Morning, Mark. How are things on your end?
Excellent. It's actually one of my favorite activities is to run this meeting.
Well, that's good then.
Oh,
Mm.
well, when you work for the guts of a big bank, you don't directly impact the world as much, better or worse. We're just gonna give people a couple of minutes to join. Oh,
Hey guys, good morning.
Tish. Um, just gonna give people until 5 past the hour to join, and we'll begin. I just noticed a typo, and I just realized I forgot how to make changes. Just what did I just do? Just submit it. Oh, there we go. I can add it. All right, it's 5 past the hour. I only have a couple of people on, but that will not stop us. All right, so welcome. We're going to get started here. Meeting minutes are in the chat. I did something last week that I just want to get off my hands, and that is based on the discussion we had last time, we needed our definitions in a separate place, and we'll also discussed the entity relationship diagram. So a relationship between various entities, various things that we're defining. So I looked at the charter and I basically pulled a chunk of it out to create a separate document. So let's just quickly look over what was done here, and then we'll move to the actual definitions document. So basically what you'll see is this paragraph right here. Oh, I need to share my screen. All right, there we go. Hi, Yagesh.
Hi, hello.
Hey, so we're right now going through the review of some changes to our document. So I pulled definitions out of the charter to move it into a separate document under the TWI GitHub.
Okay.
And we're just going to quickly look over it. So what I was saying here is this paragraph is actually the same, but the definition section basically has been removed.
Okay.
So we have the goal right here. We have sort of the problem definition. We have the goals, and then we have a goal of defining and publishing all scenarios and requirements that trustworthy identity must meet. So what is 3? Actually, I'm trying to figure out what I did, because I think we have a separate requirements document. So definitions, entities, and relationships, and then scenarios and requirements. Then basically what I want to say is actually to change this. Just bear with me for a second. Okay, there we go. Okay. Okay, so that's small. Okay, so going back. So we're basically saying we have a scenarios document and we have identity document. This is not reflected. There we go. Refreshed. Okay. And that's pretty much it. We still don't have the regulatory landscape defined, but that we'll take care of it later. So I just want permission to commit this review, and I will ask GitHub owners. This is under governance, so I don't believe I can commit this. But does
If
this?
you need any help, let me know in
Yeah,
committing.
I will. But I'm gonna submit the review.
Just one remark and one question. One,
Yeah.
I think for now the link that you point towards with the new definition is not yet live. That one is pending on review in our own repository. So I think we should commit our side first, so that it's actually not pointing to the void.
Yes. Okay. So we can make that contingent. Yes, I believe so.
Second, I also from like a couple of weeks ago, and I'm apologizing, I wasn't able to join last week, but I had the PR merging the unified definition of provenance somewhere. I'm trying to find it as I speak. I just don't want it to be now misplaced, because it was targeting the governance repo. So did you by any chance include that
We
in
would
the
have to
TI?
look under, well, let me take a look under pull requests. What's there? It's this one.
Yes, this one. Yeah.
Okay, so that one, I suggest you keep the changes, but you abandon this PR, and then we'll we'll have a discussion around this in the definitions document.
Fair enough. I can retarget that to the to my repository.
Yeah. Okay. So so this one, this is the pull request. So again, you guys maybe hold off until we actually have the definitions.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
but so we have we have this file. So let's now go do the other one, because that one's actually a lot more interesting. So this one is, and this one is actually not fully complete because it doesn't have an anti-relationship diagram, but that one we can add later. I just want to make sure that we have all the definitions in place. So here's the file. Let me just pull this up, and a lot of it is copy and paste from the other one, but it's not an exact copy, which is kind of hard to, you need to sort of compare. But
So,
yeah.
so Mark, I have a question here.
Mhm.
I think we should keep all the definitions at one place rather than
This
duplicating
would be
it
the
at two
place.
places.
This is
Yeah.
the place.
Okay. Yeah. This is the master, and we should just refer from every other document to this document
Correct.
yeah.
Yes. So I already have a link to this in the reference architecture, and the charter is already linking to this.
Okay.
Right. So we can, in fact, just, what we could do is so to make it live, we can approve this pull request, and then we simply then make changes on top of it so that at least, we have a live document, but it's actually out there.
Yeah, I support it fully, especially given this is mostly a move from another place. Let's just move it as this intact and then refine it.
Yeah. So this is the pull request. Let me just merge it then.
I will approve it so that you can merge it. You want me to merge it?
Yeah. Hold on.
Done.
Confirm merge.
No, it's already merged now.
All right. So then we'll go into code, and now we'll have our TWI definitions. So now we can, edit it as we see fit. So
yeah, there is a to do in the relationship between entities. If you see, we need to fill that to do. Yeah.
Yeah, we do, but we can still have a draft that we don't have a, the result. And by the way, this also opens up for Matesh to change, to suggest changes around provenance as well.
Yeah.
All right. So at least we have a base from which to work. But I made a few changes here. So let's say, so I introduced this workload identity document. This is something that Hank was talking about before. Right, so there is an identity document, and this is such that I actually want to have a term here that RATS people can relate to.
Yeah.
So this is part of the discussion we had last time. So an identity document is a verifiable statement that binds a workload to a cryptographic identity, including at a minimum, and this is Hank speaking, a signed public key and optionally a number of additional claims. Right, so then workload identifier is a stable construct represented by workload identity document, and this is where we're stressing long-lived workload authorization policies. This is kind of specific to the domain of TWI. Like, yeah, you can give any kind of identifier to workload, but if it's not a stable construct, you effectively run into deployment issues, and this is the kind of thing we're trying to address. So this is why this clarification is in here. Like, rather than invent a new term like a stable workload identifier, we're simply going to say in this world, workload identifiers are a stable construct.
Yeah.
And again, I'm this is a way of thinking about it. If we decide to change it later and maybe introduce a new term, well, we can still do this. This is simply where it's right now. Now, we also talked about a workload identity becoming an alias of the workload as perceived by a relying party. right? So this is where we talked about, if you remember last time, we said, I may have different identities. So I may have, different email addresses that may or may not be correlatable, that you will not be able to know from some of them that they refer also to me, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same workload, like I'm the same workload, I'm the same person, but I present different aliases in different contexts. And they're still stable. There's like, I mean, I've had the same email address for like 30 plus years, right? But it is the relationship. It's an identity. It's an alias. It's received by the relying party based on whichever workload identifier I present to it.
Yeah.
And then we talk about workload credential is actually an ephemeral identifier. So where identifier is a stable construct, a credential is ephemeral in that it may be short-lived. Credentials may come and go, but the identifier as a construct, as a concept, stays the same.
I think there is a slight problem here I see is that what you have termed as workload credential is an ephemeral is fine, workload is fine, but identifier is a slight problem because in the third bullet, you are saying workload identifier is a stable construct represented by a workload identity document. So workload identifier is in effect a stable construct. So you should be carefully in making it as an ephemeral workload identifier. Maybe workload credential is an ephemeral workload metadata or
So
some.
workload identifier is like a spiffy URI. It's not a credential. So a credential would be a way of communicating that identifier to a relying party, but that spiffy URI is supposed to be a stable construct.
Exactly. So, but workload credential, maybe we need to slightly tune the definition of workload credential to precisely relate it to workload identifier, but maintaining the dynamism about it.
So should we say an
Yeah.
ephemeral representation of a workload identifier?
Yeah, probably, yes. That is the correct definition, I think, is a
Okay, so we can do that.
representation of a workload identifier. Yeah.
I think I'm with Yogesh on that one. I think the only thing, Mark, I would maybe put up to debate is whether we want to say long-lived as an option. I know that there might be cases for that, but I don't know if we want to kind of like just hint at just-in-time credentials.
Well, I mean, it's like workload credentials should encompass all lifetimes, right? If you think about it, I mean, unless you want to create different terms for it. But if you see in the reference architecture and also in the world we're entering, short-lived credentials are going to be increasingly more important, whereas historically it was more long-lived credentials that were the norm, right? So like in the world I used to inhabit in like Microsoft Active Directory and Kerberos, you would issue these ticket granting tickets and they would be 2 weeks until you need to refresh one of those, right? So like a relatively long-term construct. Whereas if you look at some of the latest papers, and I think I shared one with the SIG from CSA on machine learning related identities, agentic identities. They're like verifiable credentials that are very, very short-lived. And very scope purposed, right? So, but they're still both credentials.
No, I agree. I guess what I was saying is like, if we're going in that direction, is it worth just calling out long-lived or just remove it altogether?
Well, so the reference architecture should encompass all scenarios, and we are not going to deprecate long-lived credentials because they're still, like some workloads are inherently fixed, right? So if I deploy an IoT somewhere, and the identity is based on attestation of its firmware, and it basically never runs any custom code. So you'll be giving that, IoT sensor credential that may be running for years.
Right.
Okay. So, okay. All right. So let's just keep going down the list. So it's good that we ended up ephemeral representation of a workload identifier. Workload provenance, and again, Mateusz, you will add this. We'll do a separate pull request, so we'll discuss it sort of as a separate thing
it's
because
already in the
it's
repository, by the way. PR
yeah.
number 8 in this repo. I just moved it.
Okay, great. All right, so now so these are all the supporting definitions. Now we have TWI definition. So that's the same, right? If the following three properties hold true, we have isolation property, credential binding property, and provenance availability property. So already there's no change there. And then we talk about additional requirements. Let's see if it's captured in 2 is 2. Scenarios and requirements, yes. So good. We talk about the sort of the practical aspect of this, where we say, so here are some clarifications. We talk about workload. Workloads can nest. So we talk about the sub-workloads can have individual identities for intra-workload communications. But if you present a workload identity externally, as opposed to sister sub-workloads, or should we say sister or peer? Maybe peer? I just don't know.
I think peer is more appropriate.
Okay. Is treated as an identity of the containing workload as a whole. Yeah, because like ultimately, if I'm writing some code where some component of my payroll application is presenting itself as an identity to some external service, it still goes out as saying, hey, I'm here on behalf of this payroll application, not some Lambda function inside of it that maybe this thing today and another thing tomorrow. So it's then basically the idea is as the internal structure of maybe I should even clarify this here, as the internal structure of a workload changes with bugs and re-architectures, the relying parties still care about stability of whatever they're being told about what the workload is. So do you think this clarification is worth having in here?
So the only thing in my mind that kind of like speaks out to this is, okay, what if the essence of the workload changes?
Well,
and therefore it requires different credentials and a different identifier.
Well, I mean, just old Yiddish joke. If grandma grew balls, should be grandpa. Like if the nature of the workload changes, you should absolutely change its identity.
Okay,
right?
I think we might want to call that out.
Okay, so let's see. So let's maybe ad-lib something. Over time, a workload may the workload's internal composition may change substantially without impacting its overall nature. E.g., a payroll application will remain such while even after being re-engineered or re-architected.
Here, Mark, I think it's kind of slippery. I mean, I get where you're coming from, but it's kind of difficult to now say who's the judge of what is the substantial enough change for the identity to change, especially when you consider provenance. Like, if the internal composition of a workload has changed, clearly its provenance has now been altered. So are we saying we can have a single identity with multiple provenances that change over time?
Yeah, we should discuss this under provenance. The provenance of a workload will change, in fact, with every patch. Yes. Absolutely.
So then I think we might even go further with the identity construct and say, I wish Hank was here, but he had a good analogy with, I think, alias or synonymous identities or something of that sort. So that I would say, the identity itself likely has changed, like the primary identity, the one which is anchored to the underpinning TEs, because, net, there's different code base, different hashes running. But then there is like a higher level of abstraction, which says, yes, under such and such conditions, this still sums up to the same payroll application, to use your example. I think we need both, actually. Like, there is this identity which is more ephemeral, which has changed, given there is a change in the underlying structure. And then there is this, let's call it functional identity, for the lack of better term for now, which is still, the application is still performing true to its function, true to the intent, and then you are the relying party. Indeed, you shouldn't care about any, structural change happening underneath. But I think we kind of need both.
So I would say put a pin in it. I think it's a valid concern, and whenever I see sort of a discussion in the security or identity world, I'm looking for real world analogies, right? So the one that came to mind, which I haven't really thought through yet, you may elect a representative to Congress in America, and halfway through, their beliefs may change, and so that's one kind of aspect of the provenance is somewhat different, but it's the same person, same position. But sometimes it changes pretty dramatically. A person may change parties, right? And is that what you voted for? I mean, clearly not in that case, right? But that's, the system allows it. So I don't know, maybe not a good analogy, maybe a good analogy. But yes, it is in fact a fact of life that something that has an identity may have a different provenance to it over time, and how do we deal with it is probably something we should just file an issue on and deal with as part of just general workload extensibility and dealing with how do we capture the change in workload. Maybe there is an out of band mechanism where you basically say this change is significant enough that we're going to revoke existing credentials, right, and force reacquisition of credentials, and then the relying parties would be forced to perhaps reevaluate them. So a good suggestion to deal with it. I don't know if how to capture it here, so there was something else we're going to say here. So we said here's an example. So over time, workload's internal composition may change substantially without impacting its overall nature. And we were going to also say that if the change is significant enough that the nature of the application changes, at that point in time, its identifier should also change.
Yeah, and then just maybe add a note that the mechanism of detecting what's a significant enough change is TBD, so that we revisit that later.
Right.
Maybe TBD, or maybe we can say that it is up to the policy of the person, right, who is using the workload identity or who is creating identity, right? Who decides basically that at this point that identity should change or must change, right?
Change so significantly that old identifiers no longer apply. And thus and apply. So I would probably just leave it at that here.
Just a little word of comments to what you guys said. The word choice is subject to policy. I think it also implies we don't care. Why? Because it's something between the relying party and the creator of the identity themselves.
Exactly.
Whereas
exactly.
what I'm thinking is we should care. I think this is embedded deep into the belly of the actual thing we are providing. If we leave that open for interpretation, we are making pretty hollow statements.
Well, but remember that we are not mandating a particular type of deployment here, right? So it is really a deployment problem.
When you say we care, right? When we say we care, like who is we? Right.
We as the CC, I mean, I'm not representing CCC as a whole, but I'm thinking as a CCC, we always want to anchor it all to the trusted workload, confidential computing containers, and the measurements that we have from the platform. So we say, if we say we have trusted measurements, but then the collection of the measurements is up in the air, and you get to decide as the relying party, as the workload provider, as to whether certain changes of the actual measurements we can attest to they are significant or not, then I think we might have a gap in the whole process. Like we are escaping, the trusted confines of what the TE gives us, and we are entering a space where there is a higher echelon, adding an interpretation layer.
Yeah. In fact, now I'm thinking, like here we're basically saying that here we're simply talking about nesting, right? Nesting and representing of the workload to the outside world. Does this belong here, or should it need a separate section somewhere?
Maybe separate section would help, that workload lifetime or something.
So I would actually put it under workload identifier.
Yeah. Or
because here we already have because here we're really talking about identifiers. And I think it's all good stuff to capture. Just want to make sure it's captured in the right place. Okay, so I also need to make sure all the capitalization is correct. Capitalize relying parties. All right, so identity document clarifications. So we're talking about additional claims, right? So we said that there is at the minimum a signed public key, and then there's some additional claims. So here we're saying at least some of the additional claims referred to by the definition above will relate to the workload's code, configuration, execution environment as validated through remote attestation of the workload instance and the hardware it is executing on. I think that's good to keep. So there is a bunch of clarifications on workload identifiers. So let's just go over certainly the top 3 that we haven't looked at yet. So workload can have multiple workload identifiers, which may not be correlatable. And we talk about the human analog. So I think this is a good statement. Let me know if you have any critiques of it. So we're just basically saying some identities are correlatable, some identities are by design not like designed to be not correlatable, so you can present them in a way that cannot be traced to the same thing.
Yeah, I think 33 line 33 is fair. I was just thinking maybe shall we add a given workload can have multiple workload identifiers depending upon the context in which it is used, something like that. And then yeah,
well,
I was done. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's separate, right? So here we're talking about this bullet point is on correlation. If you want to talk about having different identifiers so you can do different things, right?
That's exactly the thing, right? A person has a driving license, which is an identity used for showing proof that he can drive. While a passport is when you cross the nations, it identifies you belonging to a citizen of a particular country. So it's the same person, but the identities are used in different contexts, right?
Yeah, right.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
So, but this one's focuses on correlation, and we can
Yeah.
have a separate bullet saying, well, what are some reasons why you might want to have different identifiers? Well, it is because they convey different what were they say? Different use cases.
Yeah, or they are used in different contexts. The context of usage or the application is different, right? Application
Right.
context is
So
different.
what would you say? Like I would still pull it into a separate bullet point.
Okay, yeah, so long as you capture it, I'm not too fussy about where do you capture it. Yeah.
Well, let's see.
A workload can have multiple workload identifiers.
Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
I just noticed this bullet point is similar to this bullet point.
Yeah, true.
maybe keep this sentence, like I would maybe put this sentence at the end of the second bullet point.
Yeah, I think that's right, Mark.
Okay, then we don't need this. So this is actually an indication that this is a good document because some of the things we thought about, they're already in there. So there is that's a good data point. So okay, let me ad-lib this. The previous point we're talking about. The reason for a workload to have multiple identifiers is similar to what happens in a human identity world. A given identifier conveys a particular ability or function. Maybe something like that. I don't know. Yogesh, how do you feel about this?
Yeah. Which line number have you added? We just
34.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Particular ability or yeah, I think it is okay so long as it conveys the meaning. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So we got that. Let's see.
Before we move
Clarifications.
off of the identifier, just idea, do we want to add a note that the identities can have multiple lifespans? Like they don't have to have correlation on the lifespans as well. One can be issued for, say, a minute, the other for a year.
Well, those are credentials. Identifiers are always long-term stable, right? And it's the and by the way, I would actually want to correlate this with where agentic is going. So if we're saying that a given agent will have multiple different identifiers because this new world calls for, and I'm still digesting that paper. By the way, who hasn't seen that paper from CSA on agentic identities?
I know I haven't.
I haven't seen it yet.
Well, you haven't read it. I shared it on our internal chat.
Okay,
But
if you can please reshare it
yeah.
somewhere.
I'm happy to do that. Let me see. Just give me a second here. I will. There we go. I wonder if I can drop this in the chat. Let's see
You
if I
should
can
be.
do drag and drop.
Otherwise, you can send it to the TWI channel.
No. Here we go. Yeah. It's 9 megabytes, but yeah, please read this paper. It's interesting. I have mixed feelings about it that we can talk about separately, but I think it's a worthwhile thing to see because if something like this takes off, I can't imagine it not impacting us. So.
Okay, then now to explain kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah,
If we stretch the analogy of, say, us having multiple identities, one is, for example, the analogy of a driver's license, then your particular ability to drive is not, linked one-to-one with your identity, but also with some state-issued permissions. And maybe even, some kind of a doctor checkup, which is due in XYZ date. Whereas, for example, your passport gives you the ability to cross borders for a different, time. So I wonder if we want to capture that. And I know that, I mean, credentials lifespan is a different thing because I'm just issuing a certificate, valid from to. But the whole like alias itself, like I'm a payroll application suited for, I don't know, maybe serving some customers which are in the GDPR area. Maybe that's a different kind of a certification or even a different kind of an identity than a general purpose payroll application. The same application, by the way, underneath. But I'm saying in one instance, I'm kind of introducing myself as the certified government vetted thing, which has possibly a different level of access to a relying party. And then I have this other identity, which is more longer lived for processing some less sensitive stuff, so to speak.
Okay, so look, I think it's a mistake to tie the purpose of an identity to its lifetime. So I'll give you an example. So I have my passport, and my passport will expire on a certain date. I have my driver's license, and my driver's license will expire on a different date. And normally my driver's license where I live is issued for about 5 years, but my passport is issued for 10. And yet, in my particular case, my passport will expire before my driver's license does. Now, if I wanted to, for instance, so I am certified for operating a motorcycle, but not a 3-wheel motorcycle. So if I wanted to go buy and operate a 3-wheel motorcycle, then I would need to go to the DMV and or Department of Licensing, and I need to have my driver's license reissued with this additional claim, right? In which case, my identifier is the same. I'm still Mark Novak, right? So that long-term construct is certainly the name is the same, but the claims will have changed. Right? So yeah, there is purpose, and there are some things about it that may require reissuance of the identifier, which again remains long-term stable, but there was a change. But it's not like the fact that the lifetime of this credential is typically shorter than of this longer time credential. Actually, it doesn't really play into it. It's just another property of a credential that has a lifetime and expiration date. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, where I was going, and maybe indeed this real world analogy doesn't apply here, is I think there is like a third dimension. So first, your identity is absolutely stable. You're Mark Novak, that's it. Then there is your property, your trait of, for example, being able to operate, or drive vehicles, and say you are given the permission to do so for 20 years. But then you are issued a credential, a driver's license, which is valid for 5 years. I think we have 3 different lifespan. One is indefinite, as long as the workload, I mean, in this case, you are alive. This is your identity, and that's yours birthright. Then there is this, government issued permission, which also can be finite. It's tied to your identity, but it's a different thing from the credential itself, which is the document. So I think we can actually bundle the two, the latter two, the credential and the permission target. But
wait. I would say the credential encompasses the claims that would then result in permissions. So, right. So when we talk about having additional claims in your identity document, so there is a cryptographic identity, right? So like a signed public key, and any number of additional claims.
Yeah, I mean, where I'm headed, I don't think it's conflicting with what you just said. I'm only trying to kind of dance around the notion of the claim maybe being a bit more long-lived than the credential storing it. And again, for instance, I was ISO certified to do something, and this ISO certification lasts you for 10 years. But my credential is only valid for a minute because this is bound to my cryptographic keys, which are much shorter lived.
Yes.
And I, of course, can cap the ISO certification in my analogy and just say, hey, everything is valid for those 2 minutes. I'm going to reissue the credential, and it's always going to be valid. I just wonder if we have even a need, and I'm kind of, as I speak, going into, we might not have a need for that, but just exploring the option of maybe even persisting this longer lived authorization by a third party.
So okay, so let's play this through. Say I have on my driver's license saying that I don't know, I'm certified for driving commercial vehicles, and that certification is until 2030, right? Because maybe I received it in 2020 and it lasts for 10 years. But my driver's license expires in 2026, right after which date that driver's license is no longer suitable for proving my ability to drive a commercial truck, simply because the credential itself has expired, not the claim inside of it. And the recipient of my driver's license, I could show it to them and say, look, I'm still certified for commercial driver's license, whatever, commercial vehicles until 2030. It's just my driver's license, I haven't renewed it yet. They might make an exception for me and saying, that's probably fine. We'll take you with an expired driver's license. But in that case, the expiration of the claim is another claim. Or you can structure it that way. Right.
Sure.
So
yeah,
they're
that's a
just
good analogy. Yes.
right. They're separate things. So as I said, the credential having a lifetime basically says, your relying party may choose to decline, you using this credential after this time and force you to renew it. But it, what the credential says, it's pretty freeform.
You sold me on the fact that it's just another claim, indeed. Like we can model that this way.
Okay. All right. Good. Let's see. So, okay. So we have this identity clarifications. So we're talking about workload may present different workload identities for purpose of inbound authentication where defined underlying parties spend different workload identifiers. Is this captured here now? Like, again, because I don't want to say the same thing twice. Right? So basically it's line 34 against line 39. Do we need to say this more than once?
I think it's captured by 39, actually.
Yeah, so I'm saying that perhaps we can kill this. Yugesh, how do you feel?
Sorry, I was mute. Yeah, it looks good to me.
Okay. Yes, I'd rather be succinct. Okay, so I don't think anything really changed here, and we will talk about provenance again, Mateusz, as if you want, we can dedicate next meeting to that.
I'm not sure
Okay.
if I'm going to be able to attend next one, but the one after, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I also want to have this discussion today, and then we'll switch and talk about the IETF contribution. So this is, again, before I can go into Draw.io and create an ERD, but I want to make sure that a workload can have many identities, right? So that's a hazard relationship. Please verify what I wrote here. So a workload can have multiple identities, one to many. So a workload identity can have multiple identifiers, and that's a hazard relationship. Or I do not know, actually. This may be an easy relation. And I don't know. I'm a little confused there. And here I'm saying a multiple credentials can map to the same identifier. And again, this is the one that I'm not exactly sure. There's easy relationship, has a relationship. Is there any other kind of relationship? Should I even mention it?
I think the workload identifier is one-to-one to workload credential, right? For identifier, you should have one credential, isn't it?
No. That's a policy issue. Can I be issued multiple driver's licenses? Normally, the Department of Licensing will say, we will cancel any other driver's license you have when you issue a new one. But maybe they say we'll issue this one and a spare. right? And that's a policy issue. So it's one identifier, but multiple credentials representing to it, maybe with different expiration dates.
It sounds difficult to digest, but if you have a use case, maybe. Yeah.
Mark,
Well, I mean,
maybe,
I may.
sorry, I just posted a link in the chat about the mental models of identity that
Oh,
might actually kind of like be a good reference, right? Like space-time, presentation, attribute, relationship, and capability. You might want to reference this
yeah.
paper.
Maybe we will review this before our next meeting. So what I would like to do for now is to I don't know where this came from. The binding of the credential issue is fairly straightforward. Issue size issue. Why is this here? I'm not sure. This is completely out of place. If anything, it
Anyway,
belongs here.
as I read it, I wonder if we shouldn't start the discussion next time from the reverse. Like, try to first create the ERD and then come up with a crisp definitions, because I think the definitions come out of the relationship diagram. Actually, I mean, we should place them in space-time, so to speak, so that we know how they interact with each other, and then make sure we refine the definitions.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, this is a good link. Thanks, Abdullah. I'm going to put this in the meeting minutes under sort of the things to do for next time. Tasks. Okay. So what I want to do, I want to commit this change for now, and then we can resume editing it. I'm creating a pull request that I'm hoping somebody can merge. Okay. Or I can merge if I have your agreement. Sounds like I can just click. Any objections? Okay, hearing none. I'll put that in. Okay, so the last thing I want to do in the remaining 5 minutes, and again, Yogesh, you can probably be the best one here because we don't have Thomas or Hank here. We need a template for the informational draft for ATF 124. Just like we did last time, and somebody has the magic to create the right thing in GitHub that we can go and change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do we host it? Is the question I have first. New
Remember,
repo inside CCC or?
I think we can do this. Does it require its own repository, or can it be its own, like just a folder under our twisig?
Everything, the magic of CI building and all that needs a repository. So.
Okay. Well, last time it was twi-whimsy. Let's make it twice.rats because this one's going to be for rats.
Okay.
Because last time we presented in the whimsy working group, and this time we're going to present in the rats working group.
Okay, so we need to drop an email to the right fellow in CCC to create a new repo under.
Okay. Maybe what's his face, Rian?
Yeah, Rian.
Yeah. Can you do that?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So what goes in there? Like one of the questions was what should go into it. So the Hank liked the diagram that was drawn. Let me see where I have it here. TWI for rats. Remember that document?
Yeah.
Option 1, option 2. I thought there were pictures. Why am I not seeing them? Oh, because they're probably in the reference architecture. These are like, so we could introduce that into the draft, basically saying, look, we need one of those. But I was also wondering if once that thing is created, I can start ordering the content. But I was wondering should we have this enterprise use case incorporated into the draft, basically setting the context? This is what we care about.
Yeah, we can, in the draft, we can have a reference use case, which is the kind of connects with the problem and connects with the RATs and workload identity. We can certainly do that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so then I would probably say we'll list this as a use case in the draft, and then we'll propose the like the variant of this diagram, and that will be the draft.
Okay. So do we have a TWI region or TWI organization? We don't have it in the GitHub, right? We just have CCC as a org, right? And we have multiple repos sitting inside CCC. So we have a TWI sitting inside CCC, right?
Yeah.
So we need CCC. Okay, that's a so we need a new repo known as TWI-rats, something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Okay.
and that's where all our work with the RATS working group will go. All right. Okay, we'll have just 3-4 more minutes. Just opening the floor to anything else you feel should be discussed, maybe next meeting. Any other thoughts on what we talked about today before we wrap up?
So are you coming? You must be, Mark, you must be attending the ITF in person, right? In Canada?
I will talk to my manager next time I see him. Likely, yes, although I do not cherish Montreal in November.
I don't think we will have enough travel budget to travel such a long distance. So, but I will be present remotely and I will be attending the full session, so we can discuss while on the call.
Right.
So
I mean, I found that I'm definitely not going to China. I think the communists will kill me for my opinions, but I will, Canada is not quite that bad yet.
That's true. We don't know yet. We still have some time left to ITF 124.
As a recovering Canadian citizen, I'm not happy with where Canada is, but I'm not afraid to go there yet.
Situation is not that bad.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank
Again,
you,
any
everyone.
thoughts, anything you've forgotten or anything you want to say, do you have the mailing list for that or Slack or whatever? And yeah, we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.